2021. We have made it, we have survived, and hopefully you have had a wonderful holiday season, you stayed safe. And for this month of July, we're actually going to be doing snowflakes with glue, oddly enough glue, and chalk or chalk pastel. So we're going to make some really cool snowflakes on black construction paper, and I am going to show you how to do that this month. So as the weather is getting colder and we're having snow flurries here and there, I thought we would go ahead and do a little project based on snowflakes. So what you are going to need for this project is you are going to need some black construction paper. Again, you know from our previous videos, you don't always have to use the exact same that I have. So if you have regular construction paper in a smaller size, like a regular size from a pack at Walmart, that's perfectly fine, but you are going to need black construction paper for this one. You are going to need several sheets of just white paper, so you can use printer paper, computer paper, you could even use white construction paper, that would work fine. You are just going to need some paper for this. You are probably going to need a pencil with an eraser, a pair of scissors. You are going to need liquid glue. You will not be able to use a glue stick for this one. You will actually need liquid glue, so school glue would work perfectly fine. Something that would dry clear is what you want. So regular Elmer's school glue, if you get it in the white, will work perfectly fine. Anything like glitter glue or that colored glue that's out right now will not dry clear, so just be aware of what you're using. And then you are also going to need some form of chalk. So I brought, the kind that I'm using is actually called a chalk pastel. They usually come in trays like this. You can get them at Walmart. And they, of course, would come with a variety of rainbow colors. This is just one variety of chalk pastel color. However, they are real soft. That's where the pastel comes in. So it's a really soft chalk, so it smears or it blends really well. However, you can use things like drawing chalk. So if you have chalk in different colors, this is kind of like a classroom or a multi-pack, but you've seen chalk like this, like what you would use for a chalkboard. So you definitely you can use this. It'll be a little bit harder of a chalk, but it'll blend just fine. And then you can use any color you want. As you can see, I did some cool colors with mine using cool colors, blue, green, and violet. However, you probably definitely will need a white chalk, whichever direction that you go with this. Optional items for this project, of course, we have mentioned a hairdryer before, so if you are in a rush for this project, one thing that you will be doing is when you put that glue down, you'll have to wait for the glue to completely dry for your snowflakes in order to move to the next part of the project. So you are going to rather have to use a hairdryer to blow dry that glue dry, or you're going to have to wait until the glue sets before you can move on to the second part of the project, and I'll show you that here in a minute. Other optional items that you can use, you can just use your finger when you blend. However, if you don't want to get messy or some people don't like the feel of chalk. So if you don't like that, you can use something like a Q-tip to blend the chalk when the time comes. Or you can use something as simple as just a tissue. If you got a tissue around home, a little piece of toilet paper, paper towel, anything like that you can just kind of wrap around your finger to blend. So those are helpful if you don't like the feeling of chalk or you don't want to get messy. However, if chalk does end up on your clothing for this project, because it does smear and it's got that dust to it, it washes out, so don't be worried about that. Now these are completely optional items, but something that artists use, if you have not seen this before, this is very potent, so this is not something you want to use indoors, but it's called a workable fixative. Now, what is the purpose of this? Basically, artists will use this for things like pencil and chalk and charcoal, so that when they get that on their paper, they can spray it, let it air dry, and it won't smear. So that chalk won't end up everywhere. However, this isn't something that most people, if you're not doing a lot of art projects, wouldn't have on hand. So don't spend the money to do that, because this next best thing that I learned as an art student is you can just use regular hairspray. It doesn't have to be any kind of brand, but if mom or dad or yourself has a can of hairspray, you don't want to spray too close to the paper, but several inches out, and you will just spray that over top your chalk when it's complete, and it'll help fix those particles so that it won't smear. It'll smear a little bit, but it won't smear as bad as it would if you did not have a coating on it. So let's jump in. Hopefully you had a good holiday. I'm going to show you the first step for this project. So the first thing you're going to do is you're going to take your sheet of white paper, and we've all probably made paper snowflakes before, but the easiest way that I feel like to do that is to fold your paper into 4 quadrants or 4 parts. So you're just going to fold your paper in half and then fold it again so that you have quarters, right? And then you're going to draw your design out, whatever you want that to be. So you can either draw it out or you can just cut it out. But all you have to do is draw it in the corner, and then you would cut it. So I have one that's done that I drew in the corner. And you want to make sure you draw on the inside corner. See how you have the outside? You want to draw on the inside of it, and then you're going to take your scissors and you're going to follow the lines and you're going to cut your snowflake. Now there's tons of snowflakes. You can do a really simple one. You can get online and look at different formats or templates for different kinds of snowflakes. I even saw one on Facebook this week that was actually, it was a Star Wars one. It was really cool. So you can find all sorts of ones. So depending on your skill level and how much time you want to put into that, but a Star Wars snowflake would be really cool. So once you cut that out, you have your inside, which this would be the inside, right? That was actually cut out. So what I actually then cut out was this piece right here from the inside of my snowflake. And I actually cut additional pieces out. So I have this one. Now snowflakes are symmetrical, right? So symmetrical means they're the same on both sides. It's a mirror image, basically. Same shapes on both sides. So when you cut, you won't have to cut twice, because when you cut once, it'll cut exactly the same on the opposite side. So this is the snowflake I'm going to use for this project. And this is the one that I actually used for this one over here when it was finished. So the next part is now, and it's your choice, you can use the same snowflake, you can cut different snowflakes out. Again, as much time or as little time as you want to put into this, that's up to you. But what then I'm going to do next is I'm going to take my snowflake, I'll start with pencil and then outline and chalk so that you can see a little bit better with the contrast of this. It's going to be a little bit hard for you to see the pencil on the black, but if you are to do this at home, you should be able to see it perfectly fine. That lead up against the black should come out just fine. So what I'm going to do next is I'm actually going to outline, just trace the outline of my snowflake that I cut out. I'm going to trace all of the edges, just basically using it as a stencil. So I'm tracing all the way around. It's okay if it's a little bit off. And again, snowflakes can come in all shapes and sizes, so you don't have to do a medium-sized one. You could do a small one. You can do a large one, a tiny one. Make sure that you trace the inside shapes. These are more interesting if you have shapes cut out inside as well as outside. So both positive and negative shapes are good to showcase in these if you can do that instead of just having the outside shape. So I don't know how well you'll be able to see that in pencil. It's kind of, with the camera, I'm not sure how well you'll be able to see that, but I'll trace it for you. Now, if you're doing this from home, you wouldn't have to trace it in white chalk unless you chose to, but I'm just going to kind of start for you so that you can see exactly what I'm doing so that you're not confused by the process. So you can see the outline now. It's starting to pop a little bit more. I'm not going to do the whole thing, but I'll show you the gist of what I have here. So you can start seeing the shape a little bit better here of my snowflake as I go around. So again, don't waste your time having to do that at home unless it's easier for you to see it doing it that way. You know, once this is all said and done, it won't matter that there's white under there if you do happen to use chalk. Okay, so the next step now is we would basically trace our snowflake as many times throughout this composition as we chose to. You can do several. You can do one in the middle. You could just do a pattern repeating down the middle. I personally like to do some that are full snowflakes, and I like to do some that are just partial snowflakes. So instead of tracing the whole snowflake, I will just do like partial, just an edge of it or just a corner of it. So it actually looks like a scene from a falling sky of snow or something like that at nighttime. And then you're going to take your glue and you're going to trace the outline. Basically, the perimeters that I created using my chalk or just my pencil, if I was at home, right? I'm going to retrace those areas with glue. And you want to make sure that you kind of make it thick. I know most teachers tell you at school, a little bit of glue goes a long way, right? They tell you not to use a lot of glue. And you don't have to gob it on there, but you do need it, you need it to actually stand up from the paper a little bit so that when it dries, you have that same barrier. Okay. Okay, so part of this will not be very good to see because of that clear glue, but you'll get the idea here. Basically, you're going to trace the outline of all of the snowflakes that you then trace onto your paper, okay? This is where you have the option to allow it to dry or to use the hair dryer. But basically, you cannot move on to the next step until this is completely dry. You don't want it gooey, it has to be dry, so it's got to be solid dry. So for the sake of this project, what I've done is I have one ready to go. You can feel that it's like almost has an embossed feeling, meaning that it's raised. Okay, so I could feel that. And I've got 3 of them. Here's a partial, and then this one's, both of these are just about full. So these are ready to go. So from this point to here, this is completely dry. We can now move on to the next step, which is to actually apply the chalk pastel. And this is the fun part. So deciding on what colors you want to use, I've got an array of colors right here. I'm gonna then go in and I'm going to just kind of, and you'll notice this as you start to create your own, that glue, you can feel that glue kind of stop. It's going to create a barrier so that when you're coloring, the point is not to color on top of the glue, but to color around the glue, okay? But it almost gives a little bit of a 3-dimensional. So you can put as much texture and design in this or color as you choose to. And again, a lot of that depends on your initial design of your snowflake. So I'm focusing right now on this one right here. That's what I'm going to play with. Let me go back to our earlier conversation about blending. So I'm going to use a Q-tip to kind of show you. If you were to use charcoal, if you're familiar with charcoal and drawing with charcoal, this is called blending. And if you've ever worked with charcoal before, there's something called, it's like a little paper stump. They call it a stump. It's basically the same thing without having to buy one. So you're doing the same thing. You're just kind of blending the colors soft. Okay. You don't have to blend. Some people like to keep that raw color. But what becomes really cool when you blend is when you have multiple colors and you're blending them together. So let's play around with that a minute. So let's start with some blue in here. I'm just going to put some blue kind of up in these triangular points right here. Okay. And then I'm going to move on to like a dark, this is like a dark blue. And I'm going to put it right next to the light blue. And some people would like the style exactly how it is. It's kind of a little bit rough around the edges. It's a little jagged. I'm going to move to a green. Okay, now I'm going to show you the blending with this. So I'm going to take, now remember, whatever side that you use of your Q-tip, flip it over, and if you're starting with something else, you don't want to mix colors because you are going to end up with something real mucky in color if you don't use a clean side. So whatever side you used before, unless it was white, which ours was, that's okay. But if it was a color, you want to make sure that you use a fresh tip. And you always want to actually blend in the darker color. Here on this side, we're going to blend the darker color into the lighter color. Just kind of gives you a kind of like a smooth, almost like paint. Let me grab another one here. Actually, let me show you now, like just with a tissue. I'm going to wrap the tissue around my finger. Or you can even twist it a little bit, like a blending stump would be if you had used that before. And now I'm going to kind of blend like that and pull some of those colors together that way. You can see how the color is pulling up on the tissue and not on your fingers, right? I notice a lot of my students don't like the feel of chalk or the sound of chalk on the chalkboard, right? Something kind of gives you the heebie-jeebies, I don't know. But you can see how that blends it, so it gives it a very, very soft look to it, a lot like snow. So if you like that look, you can always go that route. Or if you like just the basic solid colors, you can also use the blending, but you can blend in certain shapes if you want, or you don't have to blend at all. Let's practice a little bit on this one here. We'll do something a little bit different. I like the blending on this project because it's real soft, like snow. But I don't like blending on everything. Some projects seem more appropriate than others. You can see the difference, okay? So this is the chalk pastel, it's real soft, and this is the drawn chalk. So far I have used the chalk pastel. You can see how smooth it is. This is a little bit rougher. This is that drawing chalk I was telling you about. It just doesn't have the same, I don't know what the actual ingredient or how it differs as far as, I don't know, maybe it's just milled and a little bit finer, I don't know, but it's just got a little bit hard. It's almost like sidewalk chalk. So you all are familiar with sidewalk chalk. Okay, let me get a new blender. And once some of that pigment is on your blending tool, you can actually use some of that pigment to color the areas that you originally did not actually fill with chalk originally too. So you can pull that color. Almost looks like a wash, like what you would have like in watercolor, where it's just kind of a haze of something. So you can pull that. And like everything else, you know, most people think of snowflakes being clear or being white, and think of snowflakes being white, but they don't have to be. They can be multicolored, they can be fluorescent, they can be iridescent, they can be all sorts of things. You can always take it one step further and embellish this if you choose to do that. I didn't bring the tools to do that, but if you wanted to add glitter or glitter glue or anything like that to this, you can always do more and make it your own, add your own personality and expression to it. That's the point of art. Lastly, the last thing that we're going to do is once these were all filled out and we have them filled out and colored the way that we choose, again, this is optional, but because these are snowflakes to kind of emphasize the snow, I like to just take my chalk and add random dots for the snow. Dots can actually go over your snowflake to emphasize that, you know, there's dimension there. To show that, you know, the snowflakes are actually behind the snow. If you choose to, you can actually add in your own little additional drawings of snowflakes. So maybe you have the big ones, but then you may have, and I didn't do it to this one, but it's just something I thought about as I'm working on the second one here. You can add in your own. So you have variety in your dimension of snowflakes, right? So this is a really cool project. It does not require a lot of materials. You can use all different shapes, sizes. Of course, we talked about those snowflakes and all the different really cool snowflakes that they have out there. Mine, I just sat down and just started cutting. Honestly, I didn't even draw one out. I just started cutting to see what I came up with. So if you're one of those people that can do that, go for it. Otherwise, there are plenty of formats online for snowflakes. So if you're just, you know, you go blank and you're like, I don't even know where to start, get online and just YouTube or look online for how to make a snowflake out of paper. And it'll show you lots of different formats, and you can find one that you really like to get started on this project. So I hope you have a happy and safe January. If we do get some flurries out there, make sure that you stay safe and cozy inside. And I will see you next month for our last project together in February, which is going to be really cool. It's a Zentangle hand, so I think that you will like that. Until then, I'll see you next time. Have a good day.